So sorry, we did have to. I thought I was running out of time there, but is there any questions there as far as the last one went? Can I just see, did anybody else land on 07? Okay, because I've been known to make the odd mistake here and there, so it's good to double check too. Okay, so let's take a look. This is kind of the first introduction to what your provincial exam might ask you about absolute value. It's a good question because you got to kind of think about it a little deeper than normal. If we told you that the range of the graph, do you guys remember what the range means? Yeah, usually what people will tell us is the y values of the graph, okay? So if the y values were from -5 to 9, and then we underwent this transformation, what's the new range? So it's kind of hard because you don't have a graph to look at, okay? But does anybody think they can do this without it? Oh, excellent. Alan, let's tell us about it.
It should be y is smaller than 9 and bigger than 0.
Okay, that's so close. You're so close. What did you forget?
It's smaller when you
That's but you're so close, so close. Someone help him out. What did he forget? Andrew, do you want to? It's the 2. You forgot to add the 2. So it should have been, instead of, I'll explain to you how Alan's done this, but yeah, you're right. It would go from 2 to 9. Okay, so here's one way that some students can kind of understand the question. It's a quick way, and then I'll show you a way that has a better example. So, for example, if we take all the values from -5 to 9, okay, and then I take the absolute value, what's the smallest value in the group now? It used to be -5 was the smallest. What's the smallest value in the group after absolute value? 0, right? Because I went -5, -4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 0 is now the smallest. So the first thing that would have happened is it would have gone from 0 to 9 on that graph. Oh, that's what you were going to tell me, right? You're going to tell me it should be an 11? Yeah. Okay. So now, when I move everybody up by 2, I'm going to be at 2 to 11. Okay. The other way you can do it is you can always take a graph and try it. So for example, if I came across this and I had no idea what to do, then why not just go like this really quickly? Okay. Make an example graph, and let's see what happens. If this is at -5 on my graph, and this was at 9, okay, here's what would happen after the absolute value graph. In black, I can see that my range is 0 to 9. Then I'd have to move it up by 2. And I'd be going from 2 up to 11 this time, like in this picture. So sometimes in transformations, if you come across a question that you go, oh, geez, I have no idea because there's no picture, then pick a real simple one, like a line, and see what happens. If they're talking about this in general, it means it has to work for any graph with that property. So pick a graph and try it. Okay? You'll see that some of the review questions we're going to do, you kind of have to be that way about it and see if you can work with a graph. Maybe pick something simple like the line. Okay, so in this one here, those of you who don't have the notes, you may want to just watch this for a second instead of copying the graph. But I just want to illustrate a point to you about what we've been doing and how absolute value kind of mucks everything up. So let's just say that this was the question, and you go, oh, perfect, all I have to do is absolute value, and you decide to break out a table of numbers, and you go like this, okay, here's my key points. Now, I know some of you would probably just do, one transformation. You can probably just draw it, but I just want to show you what happens if you use a table of values with absolute value and you don't think first. So we're not thinking, we're just putting values in a table. Okay, if I flip this point up, it's now going to end up here. If I flip this point up, it's now going to end up here. Okay, so my key points now would look like this. 0, at -2, at 2, and here, and that's the picture I would get. Okay, so the caution is absolute value can make things messy if you sort of rush into it. I'll show you how we're going to think about it so that this doesn't happen to us. Okay, first of all, this is the problem with what I did, is the key points also have to include the x-intercepts because that's where the reflection happens. Basically the easiest way to do this is in 3 steps. Number 1 is do all the, just like we did on those points, do all the transformations up to the absolute value, then do the absolute value transformation. Okay. Then finally, anything remaining. That's what we were doing when we worked on those points one at a time. But the absolute value graphs, I'm telling you, you will make careless mistakes unless you separate it into those 3 tasks. Okay? So we'll try one here just so you get an idea what I mean. Okay? So again, just to get it out there, first we're going to do everything before the absolute value. Then we're going to do the absolute value. Then we're going to do everything after the absolute value. So in this graph, what comes before the absolute value? Yes, the translation, and how much, where? Sani. The hint you were given was translation? Sorry? Right one is correct. So that's what we're going to do before absolute value, is we're going to move right by 1. So some of the points, this is a key point here possibly. I want to take these 4 points. Okay. So that's -5, -6. And that's at -1, 2. And that's at 2, 2. And 6, -2. Okay, so once I do, this is a simple example. You may be asked to do more. That's why I've got the whole table here. But in this simple example, there's only one thing, which is the translation right one. So I'm going to be at -4, 6, 0, 0, 2, 3, 2, and 7, -2. Okay. So now I've done the first step, which is everything up to my absolute value. So let's plot those points now that I've just calculated and see what the graph looks like. Okay, so if I was to do this here, I'm now at -4, -6, which is here. Let's see here. I'm at 3, 2, and finally at 7, -2. Okay. So again, I'm doing this very, very slowly on purpose. With an example like this, if we were done this unit, this lesson, I would expect you probably would go through it quicker than I am. So I just want to show you the process. Okay. So these are the points now. -4, 6, 0, 2, 3, 2, and 7, -2. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, this is for after. I've put them in the wrong spot. These are for after, so those shouldn't be on there. Not yet anyways. This is the graph I'm going to do the absolute value on. So what I'm going to do is, if I do absolute value, these are the only points that are affected. This point here, and this point here. So the graph would now look like this. Okay, so let me get rid of the red one. Oops. I'll have to put the black part in. Shoot, I thought I could do that gracefully, but maybe I have to use the mouse. Let's see here. Okay, so there's the graph before absolute value. So now I have a new set of key points here. These ones, oops. These ones weren't on there before. Okay, these points here were not obvious that they needed to be included. But now that I have those, I can add them into the picture. So this would be, sorry, question? Oh, sorry, I thought I heard someone. Okay, so this was at -4, and it's at +6. I have another key point here, which was at -1 and 0, and 0, 2, 3, 2, -5, and 0, and finally this key point here, which is at 7 and +2. So the only transformation that's left after absolute value is add 2 to the coordinates. So the final graph is going to be -4, 8, -1, 2, 0, 4, 3, 4, -5, 2, 7, 4. Okay. So I'll just show you where the final graph ends up. That's -4, 8, -1, 2, 0, 4, oops, 4, 3, 4, and that's that should be a +5. So this will be at 5, 2, and 7, 4. Okay, so the final graph after the transformation would look like that. Oh, it's on 7, 5? Let me just see here. 7, 4. Oh, thank you. So it should be lower. It should be 7, 4. Is that right, Andy? Okay. Okay, so there, that looks better. So the graph's moved up too. Now I realize that that seems like a lot of work for a simple question like that, but again, I just want to get the process across so that when we come across something like this with several transformations, that you can work through those 3 steps. Okay, so try those 3 steps. Number 1, do everything before absolute value to the graph. Draw the graph and its absolute value. Then do all the transformations after.